Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin. The hallway clock ticked past 6:14 p.m. when Sergeant Daniel Hayes turned the key in his front door. He wasn't supposed to be home until midnight, but a training drill had been cut short. The house, usually humming with cartoons and light chatter, met him with a stillness so complete it felt staged. "Lisa." His voice drifted down the hallway and came back empty. A faint metallic smell lingered in the air, damp concrete, rust, something cold. He set his duffel by the couch and listened. A sound whispered from somewhere below, a muffled hiccup of breath, quick, swallowed, then silence again. Daniel's pulse jumped. He moved toward the kitchen, tracing the noise to the narrow door beside the pantry, the basement door. It was locked from the outside. For 3 seconds, he simply stared at the bolt. He remembered installing that door when Ethan was a toddler. No lock, just a safety latch. Now, there was a new metal hasp screwed into the frame, the kind sold in hardware stores for storage sheds. He pressed his ear to the wood. Another tiny sob, trembling, child thin. "Ethan." His voice cracked. The sob hiccuped, turned into a scared whisper. "Dad." The word detonated every rational thought he had. Daniel yanked the bolt free. It clanged against tile. The door creaked open, releasing a wave of heavy, stale air that smelled of damp carpet and something spoiled. A single bulb swung from a cord, throwing dizzy halos across the concrete. At the far corner, curled beside a cardboard box, sat his 8-year-old son. Ethan's knees were drawn to his chest, skin pale, lips cracked, eyes red from crying. His small fingers clutched the edge of a dirty blanket like it was armor. Daniel's breath left him. He stepped down slowly, palms raised. "Hey, buddy, it's me. You're okay now." When Ethan looked up, Daniel saw the bruises, dark fingerprints along the arms, a scab on his cheek. The boy's stomach growled audibly. Next to him lay a plastic dog bowl, smeared with crusted food. "Who did this?" Daniel whispered. Ethan's voice was paper thin. "Mom's boyfriend says this is my new room." For a heartbeat, Daniel didn't move. Then the soldier in him took over, the methodical calm forged by years of command. He lifted Ethan carefully, blanket and all, the boy light as memory. Up the stairs, through the kitchen, onto the couch. He wrapped him in another blanket, poured water, waited while Ethan sipped and coughed, then fetched bread. Every motion was deliberate, controlled, because the alternative was breaking something he couldn't unbreak. The house hummed faintly. The refrigerator clicked. The clock resumed its steady pulse. Ethan's breathing slowed, his eyelids fluttering between exhaustion and fear. Daniel brushed a strand of hair from the boy's forehead and studied the bruises again, mapping them like evidence. He noted the pattern, the depth, hands too large for a child's fall. He looked toward the fridge. A fresh hardware store receipt was pinned by a magnet. Heavy-duty lock and hasps. $19.89. Dated 2 days ago. His jaw tightened. Down the hall, a new smoke detector blinked red, steady, rhythmic, almost like it was listening. Daniel took one long breath, pulled out his phone, and scrolled to a single contact. The name glowed on the screen, R. Ramirez. He pressed call. A low, steady voice answered at once. "Hayes, what's going on?" Daniel looked at his sleeping son, at the bruises, at the receipt, at the blinking red light. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. "I found Ethan locked in the basement. Get over here." He hung up, set the phone down, and stood guard beside the couch. Outside, dusk gathered over the neighborhood. Somewhere a dog barked once and fell silent. Inside the Hayes house, the air held its breath, waiting for what would come through that front door next. Rain began to patter faintly against the kitchen window as Daniel moved through the house like a ghost. Every step he took was measured, as if the walls themselves might shatter if he breathed too loud. Ethan lay asleep on the couch, wrapped in 2 blankets, a half-finished glass of water beside him. His chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm, the way kids breathe after crying too long. Daniel crouched to check him again, brushing a thumb along a bruise on the boy's arm. The skin was warm, healing, but deep purple. He took a photo, hand steady, heart shaking. Evidence first, emotion later. The house was full of small, wrong details. He saw them now because he was looking. A second smoke detector above the kitchen doorway, brand new, identical to the one in the hall. A pad of receipts on the counter, all recent, all signed in a hurried, unfamiliar scrawl. The pantry door slightly ajar with a faint chemical odor inside, bleach, ammonia. Cover-up smell. He opened the trash bin with 2 fingers. Inside lay a broken phone charger, a handful of zip ties, and an empty can of dog food. Daniel's pulse thumped in his ears. He lifted the can with a paper towel, eyes narrowing on the label. Same brand as the crusted food in the bowl downstairs. Behind him, Ethan stirred. "Dad!" Daniel turned fast, softer now. "Hey, buddy. I'm right here." Ethan blinked sleepily, voice hoarse. "Can I stay upstairs tonight?" "You can stay wherever you want," Daniel said, kneeling beside him. "You're safe now." The boy nodded, clutching his father's sleeve again before drifting back into half-sleep. Daniel stayed kneeling, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the faint rain outside. Then a car passed on the street, tires hissing, and he saw the glow of headlights flicker briefly across the curtains, just enough to make him tense. He crossed to the window, peeked through. Nothing unusual, just neighbors returning home. But the paranoia wouldn't leave. The blinking red light on that new smoke detector caught his eye again. A small, steady pulse. Too steady. His phone buzzed. "Ramirez." "On my way," the detective said. 15 minutes. "Don't touch the locks again." "I didn't," Daniel replied. "But something's off. Someone's been installing things. Cameras maybe. I'm seeing new detectors." Ramirez's tone shifted. Alert, focused. "Then leave the power on and don't pull them down yet. If they're transmitters, we'll trace them. Keep Ethan calm." "Lisa's still out." "Yeah," Daniel said, glancing at the clock. "No idea where she is." "Copy that. We'll find her." The line clicked off. Daniel set the phone down, exhaled through his teeth, and sat at the table, elbows on knees. The soldier inside him kept rerunning the sequence. Someone installed a hasp lock, used dog food, left surveillance gear, and timed everything for a window when Lisa wasn't home. Or maybe when she was. He checked the calendar on the fridge. Red pinned circles on 3 dates. Grocery runs, apparently. The same 3 afternoons Ethan's teacher had sent notes about absences. He felt the chill crawl up his spine. The front gate squeaked. A slow metal sound carried through the rain. Daniel's hand went to the drawer automatically, finding the flashlight instead of the weapon he no longer carried at home. He waited. Silence. Then footsteps retreated down the walkway, quick, uneven. A minute later, the doorbell rang once. Not a press, just a single brush, as if someone's finger hesitated. Daniel looked at Ethan, still asleep. The clock ticked loud now. He moved toward the door, quietly, and looked through the peephole. No one, just rain, glistening on the pavement, and the faint glow of a car idling across the street before pulling away. He opened the door halfway, eyes scanning the porch. On the step sat a plastic grocery bag with a note taped to it. The handwriting, Lisa's. Inside were cereal boxes, milk, and Ethan's favorite chocolate bar. The note read, "Be home soon. Please don't be angry. It's not what you think." Daniel read it twice, then folded it carefully, sliding it into his pocket. He looked up at the night sky, low clouds, steady drizzle, and felt something he hadn't felt in months, a controlled kind of rage. If Lisa was telling the truth, something darker was crawling under their roof. And if she wasn't, then he was standing in the middle of someone else's plan. He closed the door, locked it once, and stood watched by the couch until blue and red lights began to flicker faintly down the street. Ramirez was coming, and the quiet wouldn't last much longer. Red and blue lights washed softly over the wet pavement as Detective Marco Ramirez's unmarked sedan rolled to a stop outside the Hayes house. The hum of the engine faded, replaced by the low hiss of rain. Daniel opened the door before Ramirez could knock. They didn't shake hands. They didn't need to. Ramirez's sharp eyes scanned the living room in one sweep. Ethan asleep on the couch, the locked basement door visible in the hallway, the new smoke detectors blinking like quiet eyes. "Where's Lisa?" he asked. "Not home," Daniel replied. "Left a note. Groceries on the porch." Ramirez nodded once, already slipping gloves from his pocket. "Let's start with the basement." Daniel flicked on the light. The concrete walls gleamed with condensation. Ramirez crouched, flashlight sweeping over the floor, tracing every mark. Tiny scratches, scattered crumbs, the overturned dog bowl. He spoke without looking up. "How long was he down here?" "Ethan says since yesterday." "No food but that," Daniel said quietly. "Said Craig, Lisa's boyfriend, put him here." Ramirez exhaled through his nose. "That's not neglect. That's intent." He took photos, methodical and silent. Each flash burst white against the gray walls. Daniel stood behind him, jaw locked. The detective pointed at the floor. "See this?" He indicated a dark patch near the wall. "That's oil or glue residue. Something heavy sat here recently. Maybe a chair, maybe a bin. Someone tried to stage this place. See those parallel drag marks? They line up with the door hinge. Whoever did this wanted the door to close tight." Daniel's throat tightened. He made it into a cage. "Yeah," Ramirez murmured, straightening. "But that's not the only thing." He tilted his chin upward. "Smoke detector in the hall. Brand new. You said it wasn't there last month." "No. We had just one in the kitchen." "Good," Ramirez said. "Because that one's not wired to your circuit." He took a small device from his pocket and waved it beneath the red light. The detector blinked twice. Then a faint buzz emitted from the gadget. Ramirez muttered, "Wireless frequency. Not smoke. That's a mic." Daniel felt heat climb his neck. A recording device? Live transmitter, maybe both audio and video. Someone's been listening. Ethan stirred upstairs, whimpering in his sleep. Both men froze until the sound faded. Ramirez lowered his voice. "We'll trace the signal. I've got tech coming. Don't unplug it yet. If they realize it's been found, they'll wipe everything." Daniel nodded tightly. "You think Lisa knows?" "Maybe. Maybe she's scared," Ramirez said, glancing at the stairs. "But she's part of this house. Even fear leaves fingerprints." They went back up. Ramirez moved like a surgeon, checking outlets, light fixtures, vents. In the pantry, he found a small gap behind the detergent bottles. Inside was a folded grocery receipt identical to the one on the fridge, except this one had something scribbled on the back. "Don't talk loud, near detectors." Daniel's chest tightened. Lisa wrote that. "Then she knows," Ramirez said, eyes narrowing. "And she's trying to warn you without setting him off." Daniel leaned against the counter, running both hands over his face. He's controlling everything, from where the detectors are to what she says in her own kitchen. "That's what men like him do," Ramirez said. "Control is oxygen. We'll suffocate him with his own devices." A soft knock came at the door. Not loud, not rushed, just deliberate. Ramirez's hand went instinctively to his holster. Daniel peered through the peephole. Lisa stood there, rain running down her hair, eyes swollen from crying. She held no umbrella, no bag, just her phone pressed against her chest like a shield. Daniel opened the door slowly. She stepped inside, shivering. Her gaze darted immediately to the couch where Ethan slept, then to the detective behind Daniel. "Please," she whispered. "You don't understand what he's done." Ramirez nodded calmly. "Then help me understand." Lisa swallowed hard, lips trembling. "He said if I told anyone, he'd make it look like Daniel hurt Ethan. He has recordings." Daniel froze. "Recordings?" "In those detectors," she said, pointing. "He said he put them there to keep us safe. But he's been," her voice cracked. "He's been listening, watching." The house fell silent, except for the rain against the window. Ramirez's eyes hardened, but his tone stayed even. "Then you did the right thing by coming here." Lisa sank into a chair, shaking. "He's on his way back. He said he forgot something." Daniel's pulse spiked. "When?" She glanced at her phone. "Now." The sound of tires on gravel drifted through the night. Headlights swept across the curtains. Ramirez looked at Daniel. "It's time to end the quiet." They both turned toward the front door as the shadow of a man crossed the porch. The storm outside had finally reached the house. The knock wasn't loud, just two firm raps that carried through the rain-soaked night. But it was enough to make Lisa flinch so hard her chair scraped the floor. Daniel's eyes locked with Ramirez's. No words were needed. The detective gave a subtle nod, drawing his jacket back just enough to show the badge clipped to his belt. The living room felt suddenly smaller. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, Ethan's slow breathing. Every sound seemed amplified. Another knock, heavier this time. Then came his voice, calm, almost lazy. "Lisa? You home?" Lisa's face went pale. "That's him." Daniel's jaw tightened. He whispered, "Take Ethan into the hallway. Keep him quiet." She nodded and hurried to the couch, gently lifting her son. Ethan stirred, mumbling half words, but Lisa pressed a finger to her lips, whispering, "It's okay, baby, we're going upstairs." Ramirez motioned to Daniel, a silent command, then positioned himself behind the door. He pulled out a small recorder, switched it on, and nodded. The doorknob rattled once. "Lisa," Craig's voice said again, this time sharper. "I know you're in there." Daniel stepped into view, arms crossed, voice low. "She's not alone, Craig." The silence that followed was thick and immediate. Then a chuckle, quiet but edged with something mean. Well, look who's home early." Craig stepped into the porch light. He was tall, lean, wearing a soaked flannel shirt and an expression of someone who still believed he held the upper hand. He smelled faintly of cigarettes and cheap cologne, the scent of arrogance and danger. "Evening, Sergeant," he said, his tone mocking. "Guess Lisa didn't tell you I was helping around the house." "Helping?" Daniel repeated flatly. Craig smirked. "Yeah, fix the locks, set up some safety cameras. You know, to keep Ethan safe while his brave daddy was out saving the world." Ramirez stepped into the light, then, calm but firm. "Detective Marco Ramirez, County Police." He flashed his badge. "We like a word." Craig blinked, laughter fading. "What's this? Some kind of show?" Ramirez's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. "Mind telling me why a child was found locked in your basement?" For a second, the rain filled the silence. Craig's smirk wavered, then snapped back into place. "Locked?" He was hiding down there. "You know how kids are. Drama." He looked at Daniel, eyes glinting. Guess he gets it from his old man. Daniel didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared, the kind of stare soldiers learn in war. Craig's grin faltered. Ramirez took a slow step forward. "We're aware of new hardware in this home. Locks, smoke detectors. Installed by you, correct?" Craig shrugged. "I make things safe. You should be thanking me. Safety equipment that transmits live audio?" Ramirez asked evenly. That stopped him cold. His pupils tightened just enough to betray the lie. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do," Ramirez said quietly. "Because we found one, and my tech team's tracing the signal right now. Guess where it's leading?" Craig's jaw flexed. A bead of rain slid down his temple. "You got no right. You put a recording device in a home with a child," Ramirez interrupted, voice now steel. "You locked that same child in a basement. You crossed every line there is." Craig's mask cracked. "That's Lisa's kid, not mine." Daniel took a step forward, his voice low and steady. "But you heard him like he was." Craig's face darkened. "Careful, soldier. You think your badge friend here's gonna protect you when this flips? I got proof you hit that kid. Videos. Audio. All you, not me." Ramirez's gaze sharpened. "You mean the files you planted using those fake detectors?" Craig hesitated, half a second too long. The detective's radio buzzed. A voice came through, faint but clear. "Signal traced. Origin matches suspect's phone. Copy files detected." Ramirez's eyes didn't leave Craig's. "That's all I needed." Craig's hand twitched toward his pocket. Ramirez's voice snapped out, sharp as thunder. "Hands where I can see them." Craig froze, then laughed, high and brittle. "You don't have anything," he spat. Just her word and his temper. He jabbed a finger toward Daniel. "You want to know who's been lying? Ask her. Ask little Miss Perfect what she's been hiding while you were gone." Lisa, standing at the top of the stairs with Ethan behind her, whispered, "Stop it." Craig's smile curved, predatory. "Oh, you didn't tell them? Guess this is about to get fun." Ramirez's hand hovered near his weapon. Daniel's pulse roared in his ears. The air in the house was electric. Fear, fury, truth, all coiled together, seconds from detonation. Craig took one step closer, lowering his voice like a dare. Go ahead, Sergeant. You gonna be a hero again? Or you gonna lose your temper like last time? Daniel's eyes narrowed. What did you just say? Craig's grin widened. She didn't tell you that part, did she? Lisa's face went white. Craig, don't. And for the first time, Daniel realized there was something about last time he didn't know. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Only the steady tap of rain on the porch filled the silence. Then Daniel's voice broke through, calm but razor sharp. What did you mean by last time? Craig leaned one shoulder against the doorframe, enjoying the tension like it was oxygen. Ask her, he said, nodding toward Lisa. Ask your sweet, loyal wife why she begged me not to tell you what really happened last spring. Lisa's lips parted, her breath catching. Craig, please. No. Craig said with mock softness. Let's be honest for once. He deserves that, right? He turned to Daniel. You remember the hospital call you got in May? When Ethan fell down the stairs. You were overseas. Lisa told you it was an accident. Daniel's stomach turned cold. What about it? Craig's grin sharpened. It wasn't an accident. That kid said he missed his dad. Kept crying all day. Drove her crazy. I told her to calm him down. She lost it. Pushed him. He hit the step rail. She panicked. I covered for her. Lisa's voice cracked, a whisper barely holding together. That's not true. He's twisting everything. Ramirez watched, eyes narrowing. He didn't interrupt. He was waiting for something, an inconsistency, a tell. Craig chuckled low. Sure, honey. Pretend. But I still have the messages, remember? Please delete the footage before Daniel finds out. Your words. Lisa shook her head, trembling. You forced me to say that. You said you'd call child services if I didn't. Daniel's mind raced, trying to breathe through the flood. The memory of that phone call, Lisa crying, saying Ethan slipped, it had felt wrong then too. He had wanted to come home, but she'd begged him not to. Everything's fine. Please just finish your duty. Now, standing here, it all twisted into something darker. Craig saw the confusion flicker across Daniel's face and smiled wider. See that? That's what real manipulation looks like. You spent your life following orders, Sergeant, but you never saw what was right under your nose. Ramirez stepped forward, calm as ever. You're trying to provoke him. It's not going to work. Oh, I think it will, Craig hissed. Men like him, so easy to push. He's already broken. Why else did Lisa call me when you left? She needed someone stable. Someone who wasn't one bad day away from losing it. Daniel's hand curled into a fist, but he didn't move. His jaw tightened until it ached. Lisa spoke suddenly, voice rising from somewhere deep and shaking. Stop lying, she shouted. You recorded me, Craig. You made me say those words. You told me if I didn't, you'd tell Daniel I was cheating. Craig's smirk faltered just slightly. Ramirez caught it. There it is, he said quietly. He pulled a small device from his pocket and clicked it on. The sound of recorded static filled the air for a second. Then a voice, Craig's, emerged. Say it again, Lisa. Louder. I want to make sure he hears you. Craig's eyes widened. Ramirez's tone was calm, lethal. We recovered this from the detector transmitter. Your voice, your coercion. So maybe you should stop digging your own grave. Craig blinked hard, trying to shift the balance back. You think a few clips change anything? Who's going to believe a desperate wife and a washed-up soldier over me? You'd be surprised, Ramirez said. Outside, a distant siren wailed, growing nearer. Craig looked toward the sound, calculating. You can't arrest me. Not without a warrant. Who said anything about arrest? Ramirez replied. We're just having conversation. But the moment you step off this porch, that car out front has a team ready to pick you up for questioning. Craig's bravado cracked. He stepped back, jaw tight. His tone shifted from mockery to venom. You think you've won? You don't even know half of it. You're all standing in a house full of lies. Lisa's voice trembled. He's bluffing. Craig's smile returned, crooked, dangerous. Then check the attic. Everyone froze. The attic, Daniel repeated. Craig tilted his head. Go ahead, Sergeant. See what your perfect little family's been hiding above your head. He stepped backward into the rain, raising his hands mockingly. I'll wait. Ramirez exchanged a glance with Daniel. Quiet, grim, understanding. Keep eyes on him, the detective said to the officers outside. Daniel turned toward the hallway, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed not to believe him, but something about Craig's confidence chilled him deeper than the rain. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Lisa followed, whispering, "Daniel, please, it's not what he's saying." But when they reached the attic door and he pulled it open, the smell of dust and stale air wasn't what stopped him. It was the faint red blink from another hidden device tucked under the beam, just like the others. Only this one had a camera lens, and it was still recording. Daniel stared at the blinking red light like it was breathing. The attic was dark, the air thick with insulation dust and the faint smell of old wood. His flashlight beam caught the glint of a small black device tucked between beams. Wires coiled neatly, deliberate. Not an accident. Not some security upgrade. Lisa stood behind him on the ladder, one hand gripping the frame, as if it might hold her together. "I didn't know about that one," she whispered. "I swear to you, Daniel, I didn't." Daniel didn't answer. He climbed up slowly, each step creaking beneath his boots. The camera lens reflected his light back at him. Small, unblinking, merciless. He could see his own face in it. The face of a man who had been gone too long, trusting too much. He pulled on a pair of gloves from his pocket, habit, training, and carefully loosened the device from the wood. The wiring trailed into a small battery pack taped behind the beam. Ramirez appeared below, flashlight in hand. "Found something." Daniel lowered the small camera down carefully. "It's live, still transmitting." Ramirez took it, turning it over, inspecting the circuit. "Yeah, he's been watching. Real-time feed, likely connected to his phone. Probably audio, too. Every fight, every word, every bedtime story. He's been recording it all." Lisa's face crumpled. "Oh my God." She backed away from the ladder, pressing a hand to her mouth. "He told me he was setting up smoke detectors. Said he wanted to make sure Ethan was safe when I wasn't home." Ramirez looked up at her, his expression hard but not unkind. "And you believed him?" I wanted to," she whispered. "He made it sound like protection. I didn't realize he was building a cage around us." Daniel descended the ladder, his jaw tight. Protection doesn't need locks and cameras. He set the camera on the table beside the others. The tiny red light blinked once more, then went dark. Ramirez had already pulled the battery. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rain outside had softened into a steady drizzle, but inside the air felt electric, heavy with things unsaid. Lisa finally broke the silence. "You think he was using it to frame me?" Ramirez nodded slowly. "Not just you. He was setting you both up. One device downstairs to show Ethan locked in the basement. One upstairs to catch your voice, make it sound like you were part of it. And that attic one, he pointed to it. That's the master feed, probably looping everything together." Daniel's hand curled on the edge of the table. "He's been building a story. His story." Ramirez exhaled. "Exactly. And if we hadn't caught this tonight, that story might have worked. Judges don't like messy divorces or custody fights. A few doctored clips, a crying child, and you be the villain." Lisa sank into the chair, whispering, "He said he'd ruin Daniel's career if I didn't play along. I didn't know how far he'd go." Daniel's voice was quiet but cold. "He went as far as it takes to own people." From outside, headlights washed briefly across the window again. The same car. Ramirez tensed. He pulled the curtain back slightly, watching. Craig was standing by his truck, phone in hand, pacing. His expression flickered between fury and calculation. Ramirez turned to Daniel. "He's not leaving. He knows we found something." Daniel's voice dropped low. "So what now? We let him think he's still in control," Ramirez said. "He'll try to retrieve what he planted here, or destroy it. Either way, he'll give us the rest of the proof." Lisa looked up sharply. "You're using us as bait?" Ramirez met her eyes. "I'm using him against himself. But yes, it means you both stay calm, no matter what he says next." The detective stepped closer to Daniel. "I need you to hold the line. Don't confront him again tonight. Not until we've got the full link traced. Promise me." Daniel nodded once. "Understood." But as Ramirez turned to radio for backup, Daniel's gaze lingered on the blank attic hole above. The tiny camera had stopped blinking, but he could still feel it, like the house itself had been violated, made to spy on the people who lived inside. Lisa whispered. He said the attic was off limits. I thought it was just storage. Daniel looked at her, eyes tired, hurt, but steady. He turned your home into a prison, Lisa, and tonight we tear the bars down. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere in the distance. Craig's silhouette moved closer to the porch again, a shadow waiting for its moment. Inside, Ramirez's phone buzzed once with a new message. Signal match confirmed. Primary device source located at suspect's address. Sending warrant now. Ramirez looked up at Daniel, voice barely above a whisper. It's time to end this. And as he said it, the front door handle turned slowly, without anyone touching it. The metallic click of the door handle sliced through the quiet. Ramirez spun toward it instantly, hand hovering near his holster. Daniel stepped in front of Lisa, shielding her out of instinct. The handle jerked once, twice, then stopped. For 3 seconds, there was nothing. No voices. No footsteps. Just the soft hiss of rain spilling off the roof. Then a voice from the other side, calm, low, too casual. Lisa, open the door. We need to talk. Craig. Ramirez motioned for silence. He tilted his head toward the hallway, signaling Daniel to move Lisa and Ethan back upstairs. Daniel grabbed her arm gently but firmly. Go, he whispered. Lisa hesitated. What if he? Go. She nodded, scooping Ethan, half asleep, confused, and disappearing up the stairs. The old wood creaked under her feet, every sound loud enough to feel dangerous. Ramirez mouthed stay, quiet before turning back to the door. He unlatched the safety strap on his pistol, but didn't draw it. Craig, he called out, voice steady, step away from the door. We already told you to wait outside. Detective, right? Craig said through the wood. His tone had changed, less smug, more clipped. We should clear something up. You're chasing the wrong narrative. Ramirez frowned. You mean the narrative where you installed hidden cameras, locked a child in a basement, and tried to frame his parents? A small laugh, humorless. You've only seen half the truth. Daniel's muscles tensed. Don't listen to him. He's buying time. Maybe, Ramirez murmured. But let him talk. Craig's voice rose slightly. You think I did this alone? You think Lisa didn't know? Check the money transfers. Ask her why she suddenly got $4,000 from a loan. Ask who it came from. Ramirez exchanged a glance with Daniel. He's bluffing. Craig continued, words tumbling faster now, desperate to regain power. She played both of us, man. She told me you were hitting the kid. Said she needed proof for court. I just helped set up the cameras, her idea, not mine. Daniel's heartbeat pounded in his ears. That's a lie. Is it? Craig said, tone slicing through. Ask her about the day Ethan fell. She's the one who. Ramirez cut him off. Enough. He pulled the door open, just a crack. Enough to see Craig's face under the porch light. Wet hair plastered to his forehead, eyes wide and darting. He looked less like a predator now, more like someone cornered. Back away from the house, Ramirez ordered. Craig smirked faintly. You really think you've got it figured out, detective? He turned his wrist, showing his phone screen. A video thumbnail glowed on it. Ethan crying, Lisa's voice in the background saying something muffled. Craig tapped play, and through the rain Daniel heard a few words. Please stop. He'll hear us. Don't. Followed by Ethan's sobs. Lisa's voice. Ramirez's jaw tightened. Where did you get that? Craig's smile widened again. From the same network your texts are tracing. You cut my feed, but you didn't kill the copies. He took a step closer to the door. You're chasing a hero story, Sergeant, but your wife isn't innocent. Neither of you are. Daniel's hands clenched into fists, but Ramirez held up a warning palm. He wants you to react. Don't. Smart detective, Craig said softly. But here's the twist. You think you're protecting Ethan from me. The truth is he's protecting you. Daniel blinked. What the hell are you talking about? Craig's smile turned eerie. Ask him what he told his teacher. Ask what really happened that day in May. Daniel felt something heavy shift inside him, a weight of dread he didn't yet understand. You're lying. Maybe, Craig said. Maybe not. But if I'm lying, why is she crying upstairs right now? Ramirez's radio crackled, breaking the moment. Unit 7 to Detective Ramirez. Warrant confirmed. Search team en route to suspect's residence. Ramirez replied quickly. Copy. Stand by for pickup. Then to Craig. You're done talking. Hands on your head. Craig didn't move. Not until she tells him the truth. From upstairs, a sound, faint but unmistakable. Lisa's voice, broken and muffled, calling out through tears. Daniel, I'm sorry. Daniel froze. Craig laughed once, quiet and cruel. There it is. Ramirez raised his weapon. Hands up, Craig. Craig lifted his hands slowly, still smiling. Sure thing, detective. But you might want to ask your sergeant what sorry means in this house. Before Ramirez could respond, a car screeched to a stop outside, the backup team arriving. The flash of headlights flooded the porch. Craig's smirk faded as two uniformed officers stormed up the steps, pinning him against the wall. As they cuffed him, Craig leaned close to Daniel and whispered, "You think I'm a monster, but you have no idea what she's hiding." Daniel didn't answer. He just watched the man drag through the rain toward the patrol car, the words "I'm sorry" still echoing down the stairs behind him. And for the first time, Daniel wasn't sure who the real liar in his house was. The flashing lights from the patrol car painted the ceiling in restless colors. Blue, red, blue again. Craig's shouts echoed faintly from the driveway as officers shoved him into the back seat. But inside the house, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Ramirez holstered his weapon and stepped toward the door, calling to the team outside. Hold him for questioning. Do not move him until I say so. Then he turned back to Daniel, who hadn't moved an inch since Lisa's voice had broken through the air. Daniel's face was still, unreadable, but his hands trembled slightly where they hung at his sides. You heard her, he said quietly. She said she's sorry. Ramirez's tone softened. We don't know what she meant yet. I need to know, Daniel murmured. He started up the stairs without waiting for permission. Lisa sat on the edge of the bed in Ethan's room, both hands pressed over her mouth. The boy was asleep again, exhausted beyond fear. The small night light beside him glowed pale amber, catching the wet streaks of tears on Lisa's cheeks. She looked up when Daniel entered, her voice raw. Please don't hate me. Daniel stopped in the doorway. I just need you to tell me the truth. All of it. Lisa nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. He wasn't lying about everything, she said, but he twisted the parts that mattered. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady but cold. Start from the beginning. Lisa took a shuddering breath. The day Ethan fell down the stairs, it was an accident. But it wasn't just him tripping. We were arguing, me and Craig. Ethan hurt us. He tried to pull Craig's arm away from me, and Craig shoved him. I tried to grab him, but he hit the rail and went down. He was screaming, and Craig told me if I said a word, they'd take Ethan from me. He said he'd make it look like you hurt him before you left. Daniel's face tightened. So you lied to me. I was terrified, she whispered. He said he'd already talked to your commanding officer, that he had recordings. He made me believe one word from me could end your career. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I just kept the peace, he'd stop. Daniel's jaw flexed. And when he started hurting Ethan, Lisa broke then, her body shaking as she covered her face. I didn't know how to stop it. He'd wait until I was gone, tell Ethan I'd send him there to learn obedience. He told me if I tried to run, he'd release the audio. The fake one. The one that sounds like you screaming at Ethan. Daniel's eyes flickered, grief and fury twisting together. He recorded my voice. Lisa nodded. He took clips from our old phone calls, stitched them together. He said it would prove everything if it ever came to court. Ramirez appeared quietly in the doorway, arms folded. He'd heard enough. We found pieces of that on his phone, he said. Your story matches the timeline. Lisa looked at him through tears. He wanted control. That's all it ever was. He wanted to own us. Daniel knelt in front of her, his voice low, the soldier's calm barely holding. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me when it started? She met his eyes. Because you always fix things, Daniel. I thought if I told you, you'd kill him, and then I'd lose you too. The words hung between them, sharp as glass. Downstairs, a door slammed, the sound of officers moving Craig into the second car. Rain lashed harder against the windows now, thunder rolling closer. The storm outside felt like an echo of the one that had been building in this house for months. Lisa reached for Daniel's hand, hesitant. I know sorry doesn't change anything, but I need you to believe I was trying to protect Ethan. Daniel looked at her hand, then at his son sleeping in the soft glow of the nightlight. You protected him by hiding the truth, he said quietly. That's not protection. That's surrender. She flinched, but didn't pull away. Ramirez spoke from the doorway. Craig's in custody, but he's already asking for a deal. He's claiming there's more evidence, something we haven't found. Lisa's head jerked up. He's bluffing. I gave you everything I know. Ramirez's eyes stayed on her. Maybe, but I need you to think carefully. Did he ever leave something here? Something he said not to touch. Lisa blinked, thinking. Then her face changed. Yes, she whispered. In the garage. He said it was just a box of tools. He put a padlock on it. Daniel stood instantly. Let's go. Ramirez nodded, signaling to his team outside. Stay with Ethan, he told Lisa. Lock the door behind us. No one in or out until I call. Lisa clutched Ethan close, whispering through tears, Please be careful. Daniel paused at the door and looked back, just once. We're past careful, he said. We're finding the truth. The storm roared as they descended the stairs, flashlights slicing through darkness toward the garage door. The lock glinted under the beam, new, silver, deliberate. Ramirez muttered, If this is what I think it is, we're about to find his endgame. Daniel gripped the handle. Then let's open it. And as thunder cracked overhead, he forced the lock loose, unaware that inside that box lay something that would shatter everything they thought they knew. The garage smelled of damp cement and oil. The storm outside rattled the metal roof, every drop echoing like a heartbeat. Daniel's flashlight beam cut through the dark until it landed on a large gray storage box sitting against the far wall. A brand new padlock glimmered in the light, too clean for a house full of dust. Ramirez crouched beside it, pulling a small lockpick kit from his pocket. Stand back, he said. If Craig locked this himself, I don't want to risk fingerprints. Daniel crossed his arms, trying to keep still, but his chest was tight with the same instinct he used to feel before raids. That quiet dread before you open something you can't unsee. Ramirez worked the picks delicately. Click. Another click. Then the lock popped open with a hollow snap that seemed to echo through the entire house. He lifted the lid. Inside sat a small black case, a stack of USB drives, and a sealed envelope labeled insurance. Ramirez slipped on gloves and pulled the top drive out. He's been keeping copies, he murmured. Probably every file from those cameras. Daniel stared at the box. Play one. Not here, Ramirez said quickly. If it's rigged or encrypted, we could trigger a wipe. I'll take it to the cruiser. But Daniel had already picked up the envelope. He turned it over once, twice, then tore it open. Inside was a single printed photograph. Lisa, sitting at the kitchen table, crying. Craig standing behind her, hand gripping her shoulder. And in front of them, Daniel's military ID and a gun. Scrawled across the photo, in thick black marker, were the words, He doesn't know what you did. Daniel's heart stopped. What the hell? Ramirez stepped closer, taking the photo carefully. He staged this. It's a threat. He wanted you to find it. But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He reached back in the box, pulling out another folder beneath the drives, this one thicker, filled with papers. Court forms. Custody drafts. His name typed across the top. Except where father should have been listed, it had been replaced with subject. Subject. Daniel muttered, flipping the pages. Each document was covered with small annotations, timestamps, and coded references, some next to his own military case file numbers. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Wait, these aren't court papers. He took one and held it under the flashlight. These are service records. Yours. Classified copies. Where did he get these? Daniel looked at him sharply. That's impossible. Those are sealed under military clearance. Not anymore, Ramirez said grimly. Craig hacked your personnel files. He wasn't just planning to ruin you as a father. He was digging into your deployment history. Look here. He pointed to a printed note clipped to one file. If the basement story fails, use overseas footage, public sympathy plus soldier breakdown angle. Daniel's stomach turned cold. He was building a full narrative. Not just against me. For the media. Ramirez exhaled. He wanted exposure. Not prison, not revenge, attention. That's what this was about. The detective reached for another flash drive, glancing at the label, Attic _Score Master. He frowned. We'll need to check what's actually stored here, but if this contains what I think it does. The power went out. The flashlight flickered once, then steadied on Daniel's face. From upstairs, a faint noise, a creak. Then another. Ramirez drew his weapon. Stay here. Daniel's instinct screamed. No, if that's him. He's cuffed in the car, Ramirez said quickly. But even as he said it, both men heard it. A door closing softly above them. Ramirez's radio crackled to life. Detective, copy. Suspect's no longer in custody. He's gone. The cruiser's empty. What? Daniel snapped. Officer down. He took the keys. The transmission cut. For a moment, no one moved. The air in the garage grew heavier. The sound of rain, now a constant roar. Ramirez's voice dropped to a whisper. He's back in the house. Daniel's eyes darted toward the hallway. His son was upstairs. He didn't wait for orders. He grabbed the flashlight and sprinted toward the stairs. Each step slammed like thunder under his boots. Daniel, wait. Ramirez called, racing after him. They reached the hallway. The beams sweeping across framed family photos and walls that suddenly looked foreign. Another creak above. Then a whisper, soft, close, unmistakable. Lisa. Daniel froze. That voice didn't come from the hallway. It came from Ethan's room. He took the stairs two at a time, his mind a blur of fear and fury. The flashlight swung wildly until it landed on the half-open bedroom door. Inside, a shadow moved, tall, deliberate. Daniel shoved the door open, heart in his throat. And there, beside Ethan's bed, stood Craig. Soaked, bleeding from one wrist where the cuff still hung. A pistol in his other hand. His voice was calm again. Too calm. You found the box, he said softly. Good. Now, let's finish what we started. Rain lashed the windows, thunder cracking like distant artillery. Daniel froze in the doorway, every muscle locking into instinct. Craig stood by Ethan's bed, soaked and shaking, a pistol glinting under the flickering light. Blood dripped from the broken cuff, still dangling off his wrist. Ethan stirred, half awake, murmuring, Dad? Don't move. Craig hissed, the gun jerking toward the boy. Daniel's breath caught. He raised his palms slowly, his voice calm, quiet, like he was talking down a soldier about to do something irreversible. Craig, put the gun down. You're done. Cops are outside. Now's your last chance to walk out alive. Craig's laugh was low and hoarse. Alive? You think I'm walking out of this? He pressed the barrel against his own temple for half a second, then back toward Ethan. You don't get it. This story isn't about me anymore. It's about how far you'd go to protect your perfect little family. Lisa's voice broke from the hallway behind Daniel. Craig, stop. Please. He turned the gun toward her instantly. You had one job. Keep your mouth shut. Lisa froze, tears spilling down her cheeks. You can still end this without hurting him. Hurt him? Craig's eyes twitched, bloodshot, frantic. I didn't hurt anyone. You all did. You left me with nothing. No job, no control, no voice. So I made one. Ramirez appeared in the doorway behind Daniel, gun drawn, voice controlled. Lower the weapon, Craig. Step away from the child. Craig's eyes darted between them. Daniel, Ramirez, Lisa, and then back to the sleeping boy. You want the truth? He snarled. The whole world deserves to see what families like yours really are. I built proof. You think soldiers are heroes? You think mothers are saints? Daniel's voice cut through the madness, firm and level. You built lies, not proof. That's all you've ever known. Craig's jaw clenched. Maybe, but lies are what people believe first. For a moment, no one breathed. The only sound was rain hammering the roof and Ethan's faint breathing. Daniel took one small step forward. You're scared, Craig. You've been scared since the first time someone saw through you. You hide behind control because it's the only power you've ever had. But look at you now. You're alone, cornered, and bleeding. It's over. Craig's hand trembled. The gun wavered slightly. You think you can talk me down? Daniel nodded slowly. No, but maybe he can. He pointed to Ethan, sleeping peacefully through the chaos. That boy still believes the world's good. Don't prove him wrong. For the first time, Craig's face faltered. The rage flickered, replaced by something almost human: regret, exhaustion, fear. His arms sagged slightly, and that's when Ramirez moved. A flash of motion, a sharp command, "Drop it!" And then the sound, a deafening crack of gunfire. Craig staggered backward, the pistol clattering to the floor. He fell against the dresser, sliding down slowly, blood blooming across his shirt. For a heartbeat, the room was still. Then Lisa screamed. Daniel rushed forward, kicking the gun away, pressing his hand against Craig's wound. "Stay with me," he muttered automatically, though every instinct knew it was futile. Craig's eyes fluttered, his breath ragged. He smiled weakly. Guess the ending wrote itself. Daniel stared down at him. "No, you don't get to write it anymore." Craig's head tilted, his final breath escaping in a broken laugh. Then nothing. The silence that followed was crushing. The storm outside began to fade, leaving only the ticking of rain against glass. Ramirez lowered his weapon, checking on Ethan. The boy hadn't moved, still asleep, mercifully unaware. Lisa collapsed onto the floor, sobbing into her hands. Daniel turned away from the body, chest heaving, eyes burning. "It's over," Ramirez said quietly. "You did what you had to." Daniel didn't answer. He looked around the room. The broken lamp, the overturned toys, the blood pooling near the bed, and something in him cracked. "All this," he whispered, "just to feel powerful." Ramirez holstered his weapon. "Men like him don't want power. They want witnesses." Daniel nodded faintly, then let him fade without one. He pulled the blanket higher over Ethan, brushing the boy's hair back gently. For the first time in months, his son's face was peaceful. Safe. Downstairs, the backup team entered, voices low and careful. Ramirez gave them a nod to clear the scene. Daniel stayed beside Ethan's bed until they took Craig's body away. Only then did he stand, turning to Lisa. She looked small in the doorway, drenched in guilt. He spoke softly. "He's gone, but the truth stays." She met his eyes through tears. "Can you ever forgive me?" Daniel's answer was quiet, honest. "Not tonight, but maybe someday." Outside, the storm broke completely, the first clean light of dawn pushing through the gray. Daniel stood by the window, watching the patrol cars fade down the street, and whispered to himself, "Never again." Behind him, Ethan stirred and murmured in his sleep, "Dad?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, buddy, I'm here." And for the first time, the word home meant something again. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the streets slick and shining. The flashing lights were gone, replaced by the low rumble of distant thunder fading beyond the hills. The house stood quiet again, too quiet, the kind of silence that comes after chaos, when everyone is still afraid to breathe. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a mug of untouched coffee cooling between his hands. The sun crept through the window in pale bands, catching the dust that hung in the air like ghosts. Across from him, Ramirez was on the phone with dispatch, his voice calm, precise. "Yeah, confirmed suspect deceased. Send copies of the warrant files to the DA's office." "No, leave the scene team here another hour." He paused, glancing toward Daniel. "Yeah, he's fine. The boy's fine too." He ended the call and sank into the chair opposite Daniel. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Ramirez said softly, "He'll never hurt anyone again." Daniel didn't answer right away. His eyes were distant, locked on the faint scratches on the table where Ethan used to draw. "That's the problem," he said finally. "He's gone, but everything he did is still here." Ramirez followed his gaze. The wall where the fake detectors had hung, the basement door with the new lock, the faint stain on the floor from last night's blood. Every part of the house felt tainted. Lisa appeared in the doorway, wrapped in one of Daniel's jackets. Her face looked hollow, eyes rimmed red. She didn't speak, just moved quietly toward the sink, filling a glass of water with trembling hands. Daniel watched her in silence, the memory of her confession replaying over and over. Every word had felt true, but Craig's parting taunt still echoed in his mind. "You have no idea what she's hiding." He wanted to believe it was just another manipulation. But doubt, once planted, doesn't die easily. Ramirez broke the tension. Forensics found the rest of the drives in Craig's truck. Every recording, every file. We'll go through them all, but the story he built won't hold. Lisa's voice was barely audible. So, it's over. Ramirez hesitated. Legally? Yes. But emotionally? That's something else. She nodded, setting the glass down too hard. The sound made her flinch. Daniel stood, walking to the window. The sky outside was clearing, light spilling over the wet grass. A few neighbors stood behind their fences, pretending not to stare. News travels fast when sirens stop outside your house. He turned back to Lisa. We'll sell the place. Her eyes widened. Daniel, this is our home. No, he said quietly. It used to be. Now it's just walls full of memories he poisoned. Ramirez rose slowly. He's right. You both need distance. I can connect you with victim services. They'll help relocate you and Ethan somewhere private until the press moves on. Lisa nodded weakly. Thank you. She started toward the stairs, then stopped halfway. Daniel, she said softly, not turning around. You saved us. He didn't respond. After she disappeared upstairs, Ramirez sighed. She meant it. I know, Daniel said. But saving someone and forgiving them aren't the same thing. The detective studied him. You're going to need time. Don't rush it. Focus on Ethan. Daniel nodded, but his gaze drifted toward the basement door again. He's stronger than we think, he said quietly. Kids always are. But I'll make sure he never sees anything like that again. Ramirez gathered his files, then paused at the doorway. I'll be in touch once the investigation closes. You did good last night, Hayes. Real good. Daniel gave a faint, tired smile. I didn't do good, Marco. I just survived. When the detective left, the house fell silent again. Daniel stood alone for a moment, listening to the wind pushing against the windows. Upstairs, he heard Ethan's soft laugh. Lisa must have woken him. The sound broke through the heaviness for just a second, reminding him why he was still standing. He went to the couch, sat down, and finally let his body relax. His hands trembled once, then steadied. He looked at the framed photo on the shelf, one from years ago, before the deployment, before everything fractured. He whispered, We'll start over, kid. Somehow, outside, sunlight pushed through the last of the gray clouds, spilling across the front yard. The storm was gone, but the air still carried that clean, raw scent, the smell that always follows destruction. And somewhere deep inside, Daniel felt the first faint hint of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not peace. Not yet. But the possibility of it. 2 weeks later, the house was nearly empty. Boxes lined the hallway, labels scribbled in Daniel's steady handwriting. Ethan's toys, kitchen, keep. The walls were bare now, no photos, no clocks, no trace of the home it once was. Only the faint marks where the fake smoke detectors had hung remained, small circles of clean paint surrounded by shadow. The moving truck outside rumbled softly, its doors yawning open to the morning air. The neighborhood was quiet again, pretending nothing had happened here. Daniel stood in the living room, gazing at the spot where the couch used to be. The same place where he'd found Ethan shaking under a blanket, starving, terrified. The same place he'd made that one call that changed everything. He exhaled slowly, as if trying to push the memory out with his breath. Footsteps padded softly down the stairs. Ethan, still small but steadier now, hugged his favorite stuffed bear under one arm. Dad? Is this really the last day? Daniel smiled faintly. Yeah, buddy. Last day. Will our new house have a basement? Daniel crouched down until they were eye level. Yeah, he said, but it'll be for your toys this time. And I'll make sure it never locks from the outside. Ethan nodded solemnly, then reached out and wrapped his arms around his father's neck. Daniel held him tight, pressing his face into his son's hair, breathing in the scent of safety, of life after fear. Lisa appeared in the doorway, car keys in hand. Her eyes met Daniel's for a brief moment, uncertain but peaceful. The bruised guilt that once shadowed her face had softened into something else, fragile but alive. Are we ready? She asked quietly. Daniel nodded. Almost. She hesitated, then stepped closer. I started therapy, she said. For me and Ethan both. Ramirez gave me a contact. I think it's helping. I'm glad, Daniel replied. Lisa looked down. I know I don't have a right to ask, but when you're ready, I'd like to try to make things right. Not for us, for him. Daniel studied her for a long moment. There were 1,000 things he could have said, accusations, forgiveness, silence. But all he managed was a quiet truth. That's a good place to start. She smiled, faint but real. Then I'll wait. Outside, Ramirez's car pulled up to the curb. He stepped out, dressed plain, no badge today, just a friend. Got your final paperwork, he said, handing Daniel a folder. All cleared. No charges, no loose ends. The department's closing the case. The drives we recovered prove Craig staged everything. Daniel accepted the folder, flipping through briefly. So, it's officially over. On paper, Ramirez said. But you know how ghosts work. They linger until you stop feeding them. Daniel half smiled. I'm done feeding him. The detective nodded. Good. You deserve quiet. Ethan tugged on Daniel's sleeve. Are we leaving now? Yeah, buddy. Let's go. Ramirez crouched to Ethan's level. You take care of your dad, okay? He's a tough guy, but he forgets to smile sometimes. Ethan grinned shyly. I'll remind him. They all laughed, softly, gently, like people learning how to do it again. When the truck doors closed, Daniel took one last look at the house. The morning light was spilling across the floor, warming the empty walls. For a moment, he imagined the laughter that used to fill it. Small footsteps, Lisa humming in the kitchen, peace that once felt ordinary. Then he exhaled and turned away. As the car pulled out of the driveway, Ethan looked out the window. Dad, yeah. Do you think bad people ever stop being bad? Daniel thought for a long moment before answering. I think sometimes bad people forget they can stop, he said softly. But we don't forget who we are, right? Ethan shook his head. No, we're Hayes. Daniel smiled, the first real one in a long time. That's right. They drove past the last corner of the street, the same corner where that first night had begun. The rain had washed everything clean. The air smelled of cut grass and morning. In the rearview mirror, the house grew smaller until it vanished entirely behind the trees. And for the first time since that night, Daniel didn't feel the weight of it following him. He reached across the seat, took his son's hand, and whispered, not to Ethan, not even to Lisa, but to himself. It's over. Outside, sunlight spilled across the road ahead, the kind that looks almost golden after a storm. And Daniel drove toward it, not looking back.